Hey everyone, and welcome to Unseen Destinations. Today we are going someplace most of us have probably only ever dreamed of, like the Arctic, the land of the Inuit.
Yeah, that's right. And I think for a lot of us, like what we know about them, comes from movies or maybe a quick mention in school. We might think of igloos and polar bears, but there's so much more.
Yeah, way more. And you've been to diving deep into the research on this one, right?
Oh, definitely. And the more I read, the more I realized how much I didn't know. For example, did you know that term Eskimo is actually considered a little offensive by many?
I did not know that. Why is that?
Apparently it was a name given to them by outsiders, and it meant eaters of raw meat, which, isn't exactly a compliment.
Right, that makes sense. So we should be saying Inuit, which just means the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
People.
So we were talking about the Inuit, or to be even more precise, different groups like the Inuit and the Yupik, right?
Right. Yeah, you got the Inuit are mainly in places like northern Alaska, Canada, and Greenland, while the Yupiks are found in Siberia and southwestern Alaska. But their roots go back thousands of years, something like 4,000 years, to a group of people who migrated from Asia.
Wow, that's incredible. Thinking about those early migrations, they were coming to one of the harshest environments on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
How did they not just survive, but build a whole culture in a place where, honestly, most of us would last about 5 minutes?
I know, right? It's amazing. And we've got research here talking about their diet, their clothing, their housing, their transportation. It's all a masterclass in adapting to the extreme.
Okay, walk me through it. What do they eat in a place where you can't exactly grow a garden?
Think high protein, high fat, exactly what you need to stay warm and energized in the Arctic. Mm-hmm. We're talking caribou, seal, walrus, even narwhal, which, by the way, are basically unicorns of the sea.
Narwhal, okay, you're going to have to tell me more about that later. But it makes sense. You need those calories when it's freezing. What about clothes?
Forget parkas from the mall. They were using caribou and seal skin, even polar bear fur. They layered these skins to create incredibly warm and waterproof clothing.
Okay, so that's food and clothing sorted. But where did they live? Everyone always pictures igloos, but I'm guessing it's not this simple.
You're right. It's not. Igloos were actually more like temporary shelters built for hunting trips, or when they were traveling, they'd use blocks of ice stacked in this spiral shape that somehow creates a surprisingly comfortable temperature inside.
Really? Ice houses can be cozy. How does that work?
It's all about insulation and body heat. Apparently, the snow and ice actually trap heat, and the way they build the igloo allows air to circulate. They also sometimes used animal skins and fires inside to warm things up even more.
That's seriously impressive. These people were masters of making the most of what they had. It makes you wonder, are there any lessons there for us today? We're all about building green and sustainability, but the Inuits were doing that for centuries out of necessity.
Absolutely. And speaking of clever inventions, did you know they came up with sunglasses thousands of years before they became a fashion statement?
Now that you mention it, I have heard something about that. What were they made of out of ice?
Well, not exactly ice. They used bone leather or wood to create these frames with narrow slits. For the eyes, apparently it helped reduce snow glare, which, if you think about all that white reflecting the sun, I can see how that would be a problem.
Yeah, for sure. So we've talked about food, clothes, shelter. What about some of their other traditions and beliefs?
Oh, there are some really fascinating ones.
Yeah.
How about this? Instead of shaking hands or kissing cheeks, they have a greeting called the kunik. Ready for this? They smell each other's hair and cheeks.
Really? That's different. What's the reasoning behind that?
Apparently, it's all about recognizing each other by their scent. I guess when you live in small communities and see the same people all the time, you develop a keen sense of smell.
I guess that makes sense in their context. What else is there?
Well, they have a rich mythology, too. Their stories are filled with spirits and creatures, and their shamans were believed to have the ability to transform into animals, kind of like the shapeshifters you see in fantasy stories, but rooted in their own beliefs about the natural world.
This is all so different from what most of us know.
Mm-hmm.
It really challenges those stereotypes, doesn't it?
It really does. And hold on, we haven't even gotten to their calendar system yet. They actually follow a lunar calendar with 13 months, each tied to a specific natural event. So instead of June or July, it's more like the caribou migration month or the ice freezing month.
Wow, that's incredible. It really shows how deeply connected they were to the natural world. Mm-hmm. Everything about their lives seems to revolve around it. Okay, what else is there? This is all so fascinating.
There's so much more to uncover. We'll delve deeper into their family structures, their intricate art forms, and even their language. Do you know they have over 50 words for snow?
50 words. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to hear more about that. Okay, so we're just scratching the surface here, and it already sounds like a place and a culture unlike anything I could have imagined.
Right. It's like taking a journey to a different world, even though it's right here on our planet.
Stick around, folks. We've got plenty more to explore. Welcome back to Unseen Destinations. We're continuing our journey into the worlds of the Inuits, and this time we're going to look at how their way of life, so finely tuned to the Arctic, is being impacted by the modern world.
It's something we touch on with a lot of the cultures we explore, that balance between holding on to tradition and navigating the changes that come with things like technology and globalization. And I imagine it's especially challenging for the Inuit given how deeply their lives are intertwined with the natural environment.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the biggest challenges they're facing right now is climate change. We're talking melting glaciers,
Yeah.
unpredictable ice conditions, shifts in animal migration patterns. It's a whole way of life being disrupted.
It's heartbreaking, honestly, and it really hits home the fact that climate change isn't some abstract problem for the future. It's happening right now, and it's having real consequences for people like the Inuit.
Absolutely. Their hunting grounds are being affected, traditional travel routes are becoming dangerous, and some communities are even facing the possibility of having to relocate because of coastal erosion.
It's hard to even imagine having to leave the land your people have lived on for centuries, but from what I've read, the Inuit aren't just sitting back and accepting this. They're becoming leaders in speaking out about climate change, aren't they?
They are. They're sharing their firsthand experiences, their traditional knowledge about the environment, and they're pushing for action on a global scale. They're saying, look, this is what's happening to us, and it's a warning for everyone.
It makes their voices incredibly powerful. They're not just talking about scientific data, they're talking about their homes, their families, their very way of life.
And it's not just climate change. They're dealing with modernization brings a whole other set of challenges and opportunities.
Right. Things like access to better healthcare and education are obviously positive changes, but I imagine there's also a concern about losing traditional knowledge and language as younger generations grow up more connected to the outside world.
That's a tension that exists in a lot of indigenous cultures, isn't it? How to hold on to the wisdom of the past while preparing for the future.
Exactly. But it seems like the Inuit are finding creative ways to bridge that gap. One thing that stood out in the research was the efforts to incorporate Inuit language history and even traditional skills into the school curriculum.
I was fascinated by that as well.
Hmm.
It's not just about preservation, it's about empowering younger generations with a sense of identity and belonging. At the same time, they're gaining the skills they need to navigate the modern world.
It sounds like they're finding that sweet spot, honoring their heritage while equipping themselves for the future. It's inspiring to see that even in the face of these immense challenges, they're not just adapting, they're actively shaping their future.
It's a powerful reminder that resilience and ingenuity can go hand in hand with tradition. And speaking of tradition, in our next segment, we're going to explore how Inuit culture is finding expression in the 21st century, from art and music to activism and storytelling. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Unseen Destinations. We spent this episode exploring the world of the Inuit, from their ancient origins to the challenges they face in the modern world. And now I'm excited to kind of shift gears and talk about how their culture is thriving in the 21st century.
It's been amazing to see how, even with all the pressures they're facing, the Inuit are finding ways to keep their traditions alive and share them with the world.
Totally. And one of the most visible ways is through their art. Inuit art has really gained international recognition, hasn't it?
It has. When you think about it, it makes sense. These incredible carvings and sculptures, the bold prints and textile, it's also unique and visually striking.
And the more you learn about the symbolism and the meaning behind the pieces, the more fascinating it becomes.
Right. It's not just beautiful to look at. It's like each piece tells a story, reflects a belief, or captures a moment in Inuit life.
There's this real sense of connection to nature, too, that comes through in their art, whether it's a carving of an animal or a design inspired by the Northern Lights. You can feel that deep respect for the environment.
And it's not just traditional art forms that are thriving. We've got sources here talking about contemporary Inuit artists who are experimenting with new mediums, pushing boundaries, and finding fresh ways to express their cultural heritage.
It's that blend of tradition and innovation that makes it so exciting. It's like they're taking those ancient stories, those techniques passed down through generations, and finding new ways to make them relevant for today's world.
And it's not just visual art either. Inuit music is also gaining popularity with those haunting throat-singing traditions being blended with modern instruments and genres.
I've heard some of that throat singing, and it's incredible. It's so evocative. It really transports you to another place.
Yeah, it's truly unique. And traditionally, it wasn't just music for entertainment. It played a role in storytelling celebrations, even games.
Speaking of storytelling, that's another area where Inuit culture is really finding its voice in the 21st century.
Yeah, we're seeing everything from spoken word performances to graphic novels to films created by Inuit artists and storytellers.
It's about reclaiming their narrative, isn't it? Sharing their own stories in their own words on their own terms.
Absolutely. And these stories are reaching a global audience. They're providing insights into Inuit history and culture, and they're challenging stereotypes and misconceptions.
They're also using their platform to advocate for things like social justice, environmental protection, and the rights of indigenous people.
It's a reminder that art and storytelling can be powerful tools for activism. The Inuit are showing the world that you can share your culture and make a difference at the same time.
Their story is incredibly inspiring. It's about resilience, creativity, and the power of holding on to your heritage, even in a world that's constantly changing.
It makes you realize that learning about other cultures isn't just about interesting facts or pretty pictures. It's about understanding different ways of seeing the world, different ways of being in the world.
And the Inuit, with their deep connection to nature and their commitment to their community, have a lot to teach us about how to live in a more sustainable and harmonious way.
We've only just scratched the surface here, but I hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity to learn more about the Inuit and their incredible culture.
There's a whole world waiting to be discovered, and we encourage you to keep exploring, check out Inuit literature, listen to their music, seek out their art, and keep those unseen destinations on your radar. Thanks for joining us.